Good evening, everyone. This season between Easter and the Ascension and Pentecost can be confusing. The reason being the setting in which our Gospels take place. Our Gospel tonight takes place at the Last Supper. Now, Judas has just revealed himself and has now left the room. And now the disciples and Jesus are still there. And it's interesting how this evening develops. He says, when he left the room, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man to be glorified. God is glorified in him." The glory that Jesus speaks about is the obedience he has to the Father. That obedience even entails the cross. This is his journey, his calling, his vocation. To die on the cross for you and me. To die on the cross for you and me. And so it continues. And he says, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him at once. And what do we mean by that? We know the story doesn't end with the cross. It continues on with the empty tomb and also the ascension. My children, I will be with you only a little while longer. And I give you a new commandment. Notice it's not a suggestion. Notice, hey, I had this bright idea I thought I'd share with you. He's giving us a commandment. He says, love one another. As I have loved you, so you also should love one another. This is how all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. That is probably the toughest of all the commandments. I think so all of us can somewhat agree, because it's a challenge. It's a challenge as human beings. When you think of the beginning, and we've spoken about this many times, God's love for us was a choice that God made. It wasn't just a warm, fuzzy feeling that one day the sun come up, hey, I got an idea. Why don't I make something? He specifically made you. A choice he made umpteen years ago. In our lifetime, anyway. For him, it was an eternity plus. He decided to make you because he cared about you that much. And each one of us is made in his own image and likeness. Now, what does that mean? That means inside us, inside our souls, is that reflection of God in you and me. Now, let's face it. Oftentimes, that reflection is often clouded by our humanness, by how we treat one another, and how we don't necessarily always show that love. But Jesus made it a commandment, not just a suggestion, a commandment. Love one another as I have loved you. That commandment means unconditional love. Now, there is a difference between love and like. We don't have to like what we do to one another. Because of our human weakness, because of our sinful nature, we're not always very nice. But we're still called to love. And that's the challenge. To love one another because God loved you. You are called to have that same love for everyone else. The guy who cuts you off on the freeway and the first instinct is to wish him 4 flat tires in the middle of rush hour. You're called to love him. The cashier that has really had a bad day and you're the lucky one she's still going to take it out on. We're called to love. That son or daughter, mom or dad that you're having clashes with, you're still called to love. Not like necessarily, but love. We don't have to like what we do. We're called to love who we are. There's many reasons for it. Primarily, the commandment. God calls us to it. But there's also some very human reasons for this. Do you realize how much energy it takes to hate someone? How much energy it takes, and destructive energy, to hate someone. I mean, all the stomach acids, all the headaches, all the ill feelings, all the grumpiness that's inside of you when you don't extend love. And that's one of the reasons Jesus encourages us. Because to love someone is to set not only that person free, but to free yourselves. To free yourselves of the ill feelings, the stuff that comes with nasty feelings towards another person. But again, we don't have to like what people do to us. We are called to love that image that is in each of us, even in that worst enemy that you have. Because even that worst enemy that you have was created in God's image. Think of that as you think about this. Picture that person that you're really struggling with. And ask yourself, what is it that I don't like about this person? What is it that I can't love about this person? That's a better question. Is it his actions? Well, that's different. We don't have to like what people do. We are called to love because of who and what we and they are. You know, when you finally get to thinking about that, when you finally get to thinking about what this commandment that God has given us means, you finally realize what Jesus is trying to get to. He wants you to be happy. He wants you to be free. He wants you to be able to enjoy life without carrying around all the crap that so often we do carry. He wants to set you free. And the one way of doing that is to live that commandment, to love one another as God has loved us. Then there's that other reason. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Forgive us our sins, Lord, as we forgive others. Aren't you glad he doesn't hold us to our word? But still, we say it every day, reminding ourselves that we are all sinners. We are saints in the making, but we are all sinners in the process. And to be able to forgive, to let go, as we ask God day in and day out, Father, forgive me. Then help me to forgive as you forgive me. But when you think about it, how freeing that is for you and for that other person. Now, whether that person accepts your forgiveness is not your problem. Your problem is to forgive. Your problem is to love despite that person's actions. Your problem is to find God in that person that is so clouded with misery and with all the other stuff that makes him or her unhappy. Jesus gave us this commandment not to weigh us down, but to set us free. Because he wants us to be happy. And to be free of bitterness, to be free of grudges, to be free of wishing someone 4 flat tires in the middle of rush hour and then regretting it, is a lot of freedom and a lot of happiness that awaits us. But it doesn't happen instantly. We need help. That's why we have the Eucharist. Here we find the graces to be able to love that person. Here we find the graces to be able to forgive that person. Here we find the graces to be able to love myself and forgive myself. Because that could be the ultimate challenge for all of us, to forgive ourselves and to be able to love ourselves for who and what we are. Again, we are all made in God's image. That means God lives inside of us, each of us. Every human being that walks this earth, Catholic and non-Catholic, Christian and non-Christian, believers and non-believers, God resides there. There was a story once by a nun who told me way back when I was in grade school. And we were talking about the book of Revelation. And of course, the book of Revelation talks about the end times and the fire and the brimstone and all the other stuff, and the heavens opening and all the other stuff that scares the crap out of you. But she got to thinking, and I got to thinking, you know, Jesus is already here. Jesus is already here. And the end times will come when he is finally recognized. Jesus could be sitting next to you. He's waiting to be recognized. For when he is recognized, then he will reveal himself and say, okay, kids, it's time to go home. It's a wonderful thought. Whether it's real or not, it doesn't matter. Because Jesus is sitting next to you. Jesus is at home waiting for you. Jesus is here right now wanting to love you. Can you love him and one another in return?